Welcome to the Wimbo Worldwide F1 podcast.
F1 content around the globe.
But anyway, back to Formula One. Do you have a wild prediction for this season? Something crazy. Like, it could be something from silly season, or it could be a surprise race winner. It could be something that's totally out there.
I'm going to nominate Lance Stroll as a surprise race winner.
Okay. This man is a YouTuber just like me, but he's way more advanced than me. He's got loads more subscribers than I have. We did a collaboration not so long ago, and that worked really well for me. This man is been described as the Hugh Grant of Formula One content. Ladies and gentlemen, it's Peter Brook.
Thanks for having me.
Hello, Peter. What did you think of the introduction?
Interesting. I'm wondering where the Hugh Grant thing came from, because I haven't come across that one myself, but that's certainly new.
It's because
as a description.
It's because you sound posh.
Mm.
Can you say upsy daisy?
Upsy daisy.
Do you ever say that?
Not very often.
No. See, I'm besides being an F1 freak, I'm a movie buff as well. So, that's one of my hobbies. So, yes, your YouTube channel, Peter Brook. For everybody that hasn't subscribed to Peter Brook, look him up. He's got the nicest long-form content, diving into the history of everything F1 related. And you need some time to, sit down and put one of these videos on, but it's worth your time. So, how did you get the idea to do that sort of content?
So before I started making videos, I was watching a lot of YouTube videos about Formula One back around 2017, 2018. That was quite early in the content creation kind of era, and there weren't many people doing it beyond Aldas was one of the main ones, and Josh Revel had just started. But Aldas had his series on the downfall of McLaren, and that was split into several parts. And they were each 15, 20 minutes long. And I thought, okay, well, there's obviously a market for people who want to listen to long form stuff about Formula One, because before that, most videos, original videos people made were maybe 10 minutes at the most. And then I basically got the idea to make videos for fun during lockdown in 2020, because there wasn't much else to do. And I thought to myself, well, I've always found the backmarker teams interesting, particularly HRT, Virgin, Lotus, and I haven't seen a huge amount on them. And so I thought, let's go into that. And I got the idea of basically the first series of videos I did covering them. I basically covered every race in the season in excruciating detail, like every overtake, every pit stop. And I got the idea for that because when I went to the British Grand Prix twice in 2011, 2012, obviously you get equal coverage of every car because they all have to pass you once a lap. And I thought, well, this is interesting because now I'm seeing what the back markers are doing and how their own race is going, whereas normally you would only see them when they were being lapped or crashing. And so I got, okay, let's just basically retell all of these races, but from their perspective, and just see how that goes. And yeah, people really liked it. Even though at the beginning, like everyone, the views were not particularly high, the comments I was getting was overwhelmingly positive. And so that kind of motivated me to keep persisting with it and coming up with different ideas of other things to cover. And eventually I got to the point where the channel got monetized and it went from being a hobby to a job.
Well, yeah, I think you're doing a hell of a job. And one of the things I really like about your channel is that it's unbiased, like you're English, but I can't say that you're rooting for English drivers more than other drivers. From what I've gathered, you've been a Sebastian Vettel fan.
Yes, yeah. I mean, I try to take a neutral stance unless I'm deliberately being satirical or something in videos. Although I've been accused of being a Hamilton hater and also a Hamilton fanboy when I've tried to counter that. And so I think I've made it, I'm in the middle somewhere with that, it seems, to my viewers. So I guess that counts as unbiased.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've always been a Vettel fan. It was around. I started watching F1 as a kid. I knew what it was, and I didn't give it a huge amount of attention because I was more interested in like Le Mans and touring cars and homologation racing cars rather than single seaters. But I got into it around 2007 when Hamilton joined. And then 2008 was when I started watching it full time. And at the time I started, Vettel was at the bottom of the standings. And I didn't know who he was because I didn't remember him from 2007. And I thought, oh, well, he's at the bottom. And he's been having a bit of a hard time because he retired from the first 4 races in 2008. And I was like, well, let's just support him. And then obviously I started to realize, actually, this kid is quite good. And then he wins his first race. And it just kind of went from there.
Yeah. I think that's a great way to start supporting. Instead of saying, oh, this guy's got 3 championships already, let's root for him, because he's a winner.
And I was never interested in saying like, oh, I'm going to support Hamilton or Button because they're British. I've never subscribed to that. I mean, I've softened a little bit in the past few years. So I was definitely partial towards George, but I find he's getting quite annoying now. And Lando, I don't mind as well. But yeah, I've never been one to be like, oh, I'm just going to support whoever the British driver is. Even though, ironically, I do look back at the McLaren when it was Hamilton and Button with quite a lot of fondness, even though they were basically my enemies at the time because they were competing against Vettel and beating him on occasion as well.
Yeah. Well, that's another thing I like about your videos. You put in these tiny little sarcastic comments, and they make me giggle. What was it? You had a few about Jos Verstappen and Robert Dornbos and his sex toy company. I've seen that a few times, and like even in the collaboration we did, you described Mick Schumacher as having the weight of the world on his shoulder because he's Ralph Schumacher's nephew.
Yeah, I mean, I like to. I do have to put in little quips on that. I mean, in my video where I was listing every single Formula One driver ranked by career points, for the interesting facts for Mick, I put cousin of David Schumacher, and so I'll just avoid mentioning Michael at every turn.
So that's a reoccurring theme then.
Yeah,
just not saying he's the son of, but he's always something else.
Yeah, or son of Karina Schumacher or something like that. But yeah, no, it's just a little quick.
That's like that's like a little Easter egg you leave into your videos.
Yeah, it's the same with obviously the one that everyone talks about is Nico Rosberg and him becoming a Monaco-based YouTuber and beating Lewis Hamilton in equal machinery. I don't even know where that came from. It just suddenly became a thing. Like last year, people started mentioning it as a joke, and I was like, okay, well, I guess I'll take that on. But I don't specifically remember Rosberg gloating about beating Hamilton in equal machinery. Like I remember the Monaco-based YouTuber stuff, but not the other one. But
no,
yeah.
and then the advantage locked in for years. That's a big one from Twitter.
Yeah, that one I haven't used that in mine on any videos yet. But yeah, that one comes up a lot with Jordan, of course. It seems to have basically just got 30,000 views 30,000 followers just by whining constantly whenever Mercedes aren't winning. Just very, very cynical person.
Yeah, and there's a few of them, really big Twitter accounts just doing nothing but moaning about Red Bull and Max.
Yeah, I mean, okay, I do moan, but I try to moan about lots of different things rather than just, oh, the team I don't like is winning, so I'm going to moan about them or something. But yeah, I mean, F1 Twitter is a weird place because you get so many, like, I understand why people like me would use it. Like content creators, you use it mostly to promote your channel and get attention and to networking with other creators, which is what it's really helped me with. And obviously you get people that work within the F1 world, the journalists, the drivers, everyone else, that's fair enough. But then you get the fan accounts and you get the people who just talk about F1, but they don't make videos. They just make these massive long threads and they get loads of followers. And then you get the like fangirl accounts where their profile picture is one of the drivers and they're using capital letters in all the wrong places. And they see, I swear they must be stalking the drivers because on Instagram, they know everything about their personal lives and whenever they've been seen leaving a hotel with some model or whatever and who they're dating. And I'm just like, where are you getting all this information? Or like, it's weird. It's a weird place, F1 Twitter.
Yeah, well, I don't go into discussions with those people.
Yeah, and they don't go into discussions with me because we don't really have much to talk about, I don't think.
But yeah, I enjoy being on Twitter for the information, but also when the mood strikes, I'll have these nice lengthy discussions, and nobody ever wins. But
I try not to get in arguments too much. I mean, also I have a rule that I try to avoid talking about anything unrelated to Formula One on that account. So I'm not going to start getting in like political arguments.
No, what I've noticed from messaging you is that the lengthy your videos are, you're as concise with your DMs.
Yes,
it's always 2 rules, and I think, he must be researching his new video because I'm not getting any more replies.
I tend not to go into long things. I mean, I have a tendency recently. Sometimes I like to make random threads on Twitter. And that can take a whole morning. And then I think to myself, okay, well, hopefully it gets a decent amount of likes. But otherwise, I've just basically procrastinated for a whole morning on something that doesn't make me money. Whereas, video research would as part of my job. But yeah, sometimes I think I spend too much time on Twitter because even if I don't tweet that much, I'm just browsing it basically nonstop.
Oh, well, you need some relaxation as well,
Yeah.
So we talked about your passion for F1. Did that make you a Red Bull fan immediately as well? Like, even when Vettel left?
I've never had any particularly strong allegiances to teams. So I've usually only supported the ones that had drivers I liked driving for them. So with Ferrari, for example, I got off the train at the same stop as Vettel, basically. And I refuse to support them just for the sake of my mental health and because they're just such a mess and they just don't know what they're doing. But I respect the fact that they've been here since the very beginning and, they're hugely successful and they are a core part of F1's image and F1's identity.
Yeah.
Red Bull, as a team, I mean, Christian Horner likes to moan a lot. I mean, during the Vettel years, I did like them. It's mostly because I have such huge respect for Adrian Newey and what he's done for them, because he's obviously the master. Like, he's by far the most successful technical director in Formula One. There are a few other people other than Ross Brawn or Rory Byrne, or I don't know if you count Colin Chapman as a technical director, that would kind of come near what he's done and the amount of innovation he's brought in terms of car design. But yeah, I don't often I used to like Williams, but now I'm just getting bored of them because they keep being shit. And the cars I don't like, since Frank and Claire left, it's not the same, and the cars are ugly as well. And yeah.
Do you think it was a bit of a karma that Williams went down that route? Because what I discovered after the collaboration we did is that Frank Williams dumped drivers one after the other. He got Mansell in and then kicked him out, and then he got Hill and he became champion and kicked him out.
Yeah, I mean, he's always been he's been especially ruthless as team principals goes when it comes to drivers. And they're a team that, because they always held themselves in high regard, and they had good reason to, because they used to be so successful that they would want the very best drivers. But they've just been in this continuous decline since 1997, with a few hills here and there where they improved. But it doesn't feel like the same team anymore just without them. And even then, we've lost Jos Capito after 2 years, and now it's James Vowles, which makes it seem to me it's hard to see them as being anything more than just like a Mercedes B team at the moment. Yeah, because they've got the Mercedes engines and James Vowles, and Toto's trying to get Mick to take Logan Sargent's seat as well. Yeah.
But isn't that the problem with F1, that if you're not a manufacturer, that you can't win the title anymore?
Yeah, I mean, you can't not win it. It's just a bit harder because the manufacturers, they have their money and their image from their car sales to fall back on, and Mercedes as well, because they sell kind of affordable cars, whereas McLaren only sells high-end supercars.
But I thought I thought it had more to do with how the technical team of Mercedes and the engine team of Mercedes, they work together to, to fit that engine in properly, whereas Williams just gets an engine delivered and they have to build around it.
Oh yeah, obviously customer teams are usually at a disadvantage because the engines as well, because their cars are not adapted to the engines, and there's reason to believe that the engines that customers get from the bigger teams are maybe not as good as the ones that the teams are making for themselves.
That's something I've read as well. That that there's like 4 or 5 mile per hour slower, or
and obviously once they get them, it's then their job to do upgrades and develop it how they want and that. But Williams in the hybrid era, they've basically been carried by Mercedes, because the car's chassis has never been particularly good, but they've always had really good engines, and that's the only thing that's kind of kept things going and meant that they've had brief flashes of competitiveness, essentially.
And do you think the order is going to change now that Honda's coming in with Aston Martin in the future, and it's nice to have more manufacturers on the grid from 2026.
I mean, I think I would like to see, because Audi's coming back as well, and I would like to see them do well, because they've got lots of money behind them, so hopefully it will work. Honda, obviously, as we saw in 2021, they finally built powerful engines that worked. So if they can keep that going, then Mercedes have basically met their match in the engine department. So that would work for them. But yeah, we need more. I think we need more engine suppliers coming in. I'd like to see someone like BMW come back, because their engines have always been monsters.
What about the ones from Japan, like Toyota or?
Yeah, I mean, the more the merrier, to be honest. I mean, the Toyota engines were kind of okay. I mean, they were only around for a few years, about 15 years ago. But yeah, Honda have had, I mean, they've had this, they keep coming and going, but obviously they've had a lot of success, and they've been, their first foray into Formula One was in the 1960s. So yeah, I think if they could come back properly, because they keep changing their minds and leaving and going again, and that. So yeah, more of them. Need a Japanese team back as well, I think.
Yeah, that would be nice. Isn't there an Asian group that wants to come in?
There might be. I haven't.
Pantera or something? No.
I haven't heard anything about that myself. But yeah, I'd like to see if Honda came back as a team, or God forbid Toyota, or then maybe they think maybe it's not worth it, because obviously they pumped a ton of money into their F1 thing and got basically nothing out of it. Or if someone wants to resurrect Super Aguri, that could happen. Yeah, that would just be good. Or even Nissan, because they're doing Formula E and all of that. Just more manufacturers, I think. And
do you want more teams on the grid as well then?
Yeah. So the cap is at 13 or 26 car grids. I don't necessarily want us to go back to the days of pre-qualifying, when you had like 12 or 13 cars fighting for like 4 spots. And then even then you have to then qualify again to make it for the 26 spots. No, we need more teams, because they've only got 10.
But then tracks like Monaco and Zandvoort, they have a problem then, because there's barely any space to have more pit boxes.
Yeah, I think Monaco, I think they can fit 26 at Monaco. The issue you have is qualifying, and for that they would need to split them up into 2 groups, because that's what the Formula 2, Formula 3, that's what they've done. So for qualifying, yeah, I think you can make some changes. But for the race itself, you can fit.
So they split the whole quali up in 2 groups, and then they go through Q3, Q2, and Q1.
No, I think it's in Formula 2, it's one session, but it's split into 2 separate groups of drivers. No, what you would do is you would do Formula Q1 in 2 separate sessions, but then Q2 onwards you could do it all in one, because they proposed doing this in 2010 when we'd suddenly got 3 new teams, splitting qualifying, because they were worried about the slower teams holding everyone else up. And then it turns out they were getting blocked by Ferrari and faster teams when they were doing their qualifying runs.
You still see that a lot.
Yeah. We've seen what was going on with Sainz in Canada.
Yeah.
It's just blocking everyone at the final chicane and twice nearly causing massive accidents. It's just that sometimes it needs a bit more communication. I mean, you can see why 20 odd years ago when they did that one lap shootout system, that worked into the space because everyone gets one lap and, they get full coverage. So that keeps the sponsors happy, but it's not very interesting because it takes ages and it's quite low energy.
And with changing tracks, that's something people would moan about as well. If the track is ramping up, then the guy who drives last gets the benefit. And if it starts raining a little bit more, then you're at a disadvantage when you're driving later.
Well, this is the thing. That was why what they did was that they would run you in championship order. And so if you're at the top, you go first. And to give a bit of an edge to the people at the back. And that was why, obviously, famously, France 2003, when Jos Verstappen gets provisional pole, because when he went out, the track had dried. So everyone else went out in the wet and he got a dry track and got pole by like 3 seconds or something. Obviously, it then stayed dry the next day, so that stopped him keeping that pole position. But yeah, that obviously did expose a problem, because then you would get endless complaints if there was changing weather. Well, then it's just luck of the draw.
Yeah,
but when the
at least now arrives, teams have a choice to send a driver out. Like what Albon did in Q2 in Canada was brilliant. The first one to go out on slicks, set a lap, and then set another one, and then the fastest one in Q2.
And then they sent out, was it Mercedes or Ferrari got sent out right at the end when it was already raining, and then they were like 3 seconds off in the first sector. It's like these are the things you need to think about with changing weather.
That's what called Perez out as well.
Yeah, and these are the things you have to think about and with weather and what makes it more interesting for us and more challenging for them.
I personally think that F1 doesn't need too many changes anymore.
Well, I don't think qualifying needs any changes, but there are lots of other things I would change.
In Imola, they wanted to force people to do Q1 on the hards, and then Q2 on mediums, and Q3 on soft.
Yeah, it's that. It's stuff like that. They keep messing things around, and it's like we don't. Okay, this elimination thing that we've had since 2006, it's great. It doesn't need changing. I never liked that rule that you had to start the race on, if you're in Q3, you had to start the race on your qualifying tyres, and then they changed that to Q2. It's like, no, let's get rid of that completely. Just use any tyres you want. And it gives them freedom. And yeah, it works because it gives a mixture of fairness and excitement, rather than just you have an hour to just set as many lap times as you can, which is what they used to do. And it's just not nearly as interesting.
No, I love qualifying hour. I really do. So talking about races and qualifying, have you been to races? Have you been to Silverstone?
Yeah, so I mentioned earlier, I went to
Silverstone. You told me.
Yeah, I went to Silverstone in 2011 and 2012. If I could, I would go every year, but unfortunately it's very expensive. And for most of the preceding 10 years, I haven't had the money to go, and had things like university and other jobs and everything.
Just make a video about it, and then that will pay for itself.
Yeah, I know. That's the thing. Is that's the incentive now, is that if I could go, because lots of other creators go, I'd go and meet them as well.
I'm going to Austria next week.
Oh, wow. Nice.
Yeah, I'm stepping on a bus here, really close to my house, and then we're going to go through the Netherlands, picking up people all over the place.
The Orange Army are going to assemble on that coach.
And and then all the way to Austria, to Spielberg.
Nice.
I'm going to drive all night through, and then I've got a hotel. I'm going to be there for 3 days. Back on Monday afternoon, I think.
Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it. I made these cards, to hand out, like business cards.
Oh, business cards. Oh, nice.
Everybody in the bus is going to get one. Please subscribe.
Yeah.
Please subscribe. Then I'm probably going to get the microphone and ask people if it's okay if they're going to be on my YouTube channel, because there might be people that don't want to be on YouTube.
Yeah, no, make a proper vlog out of it, because that's what people like.
Yeah.
Something I wish if they existed at the time, I would have done that myself. I mean, I took lots of pictures. They're not very good ones, and I filmed stuff on like a handheld video camera. But this is before YouTube kicked off and everything, and so I'd never had any consideration of putting that stuff on YouTube and that.
Let's go to Silverstone together next year.
Mm-hmm. It's I need to go again, I think. It just it has the added incentive of just meeting other creators, because most people go if they can, certainly to Silverstone.
I wouldn't know where to find them. Like, I'm not going to go in a VIP room. I can't.
No, well, it's all done through Twitter. I think you just be like, oh, I'm at Cops. Is anyone else nearby or something like that? It's still, let's meet at Stowe. It's that kind of thing. I'm just going to look for Rosanna Tennant. Oh yeah. Of course, if I could get paddock access, that would change things a lot.
Sorry?
Yeah.
Oh,
if I could get paddock access, that would change things. Yeah, that would.
I want to give her a hug because I'm so short,
Mm.
Yeah, right level. No, never mind.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's the races. But you said that you could follow the back market teams and you could follow the whole race. But I've been to Spa twice, and it's actually very hard where we were standing to follow the race at all.
Yeah, I mean, it was. I mean, I could follow it in the sense that you could see what's happening in front of you, but particularly because you did start to lose track. I mean, I could I don't remember a huge amount about 2011, the race. I can remember the 2012 race quite well. It wasn't the most exciting race in the world, but there was a big screen in front of us on the other side of the track, and there is commentary that plays out the speakers that gives you some help. So I realised things like I knew that towards the end, Mark Webber was chasing Alonso for the lead and eventually passed him in that. But yeah, when it came to Caterham Virgin HRT specifically, for the first 20 laps you can keep up with what they're doing, but once they start getting lapped and they start pitting, then it gets much more confusing, because then they start to get spread out from each other quite far as well, and that's much harder to follow. These days, of course, the drivers don't normally, unless they've had to pit early because they broke a front wing, they don't normally get lapped. So they're all at least still on the same lead lap at the end of the race. It's easy to follow. But when you've got a team that's getting lapped 3 or 4 times, it can be very hard to keep up.
But what you see is, I've been to Spa in 2017, and we saw Verstappen coming by, and then Ricciardo, and then the next lap Verstappen, Ricciardo, and Verstappen, Ricciardo, and we said, oh, he's building a bit of a gap, and then all of a sudden lap 8, hey, it's only Ricciardo. Yeah. Because his Renault engine, one of the sparklers didn't work anymore. A £1.50 piece stopped working. And then 2 years later, I went again in 2019, and he had a collision with Kimi Raikkonen in the first corner. So two DNFs. So that's why I'm a little bit worried about next week. I hope if he DNFs, I hope it's in the sprint race.
Well, if he does, well, the thing is, their reliability is so good now.
Yeah,
this is the thing. I mean, I don't know if these count as being authentic Red Bull engines or if they're still just Honda ones. But yeah, so obviously they were 2017 to 2019. It was just endless breakdowns.
Yeah.
But did he have? I don't think he had any last year that I can recall.
Last year he had 2 DNFs in the first 3 races.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right at the beginning, but
I think Bahrain, and then the third race,
Australia.
Yeah.
But 2021, he didn't have any breakdowns.
No, just Bottas and Hamilton.
Yeah. So he hasn't the car. This is the thing. The reliability now is. I mean, he had that problem in qualifying in Saudi Arabia. The reliability is so good now. It's almost like we're getting way too many races with no retirements than we should.
Yeah, you like a bit of retirements here and there.
Well, yeah, you need something, especially if you want the back marker teams. Like that's the only chance they have to get points, and that's how it used to be reasonably fair 30 years ago when you had a 26 car grid, but only the top 6 could get points. Is that maybe 10 of them might score points. Or might finish the race, and so then that would give you a chance to get some points if you could just keep the car on the track and the gearbox held out. But now, if you're starting at the back in an Alfa Romeo or a Williams, you've got little to no chance of scoring points if no one's going to retire.
Yeah.
On the other hand, it does make the games feel much more realistic, where the AI just never break down, and your own car never breaks down as well. They've got that right, at least.
Well, I'm preparing a video called 5 Ways You Can Compare Verstappen to Senna. And one thing I'm writing about is how Max used to defend even if he was in a Toro Rosso. He built up this reputation of being hard to pass, and he would annoy the leaders, he would annoy backmarkers, he would annoy anybody that tried to pass him. And what you see nowadays is that all drivers say, "Oh, better save my tires because this is not my fight. This is not my fight."
Yeah.
And you see these faster cars with DRS, and they're not even trying. The only one I saw defending was Ocon against Alonso. That he moved to the side, and that was kind of exciting. I wish these youngsters had that more. The sort of fuck you attitude. I don't care if you're a world champion.
It's a lot. I mean, it's the more exciting option, but it's not the most practical, because obviously they know that because there's been such a huge divide since 2017 with Formula 1 and Formula 1.5, that they know there's no point fighting them. And this is why when you had races where Hamilton, for example, had to start last and climb through, he could climb through very easily because nobody would make any attempts to defend against him until he got to about 5th place. And then they would start putting up a fight because they know there's no point. And again, because they have to save their bloody tires. I really wish that tires were didn't have such a chokehold.
Yes, but that debate is going on as well. Like, do you need stronger tires that everybody can push like hell and finish the race on one set, which is not allowed, but I know that. Or do you need ones that degrade so fast so you need to? It's not that easy to solve, I think.
It's been an endless discussion since Pirelli came in 2011, because the complaints before that with Bridgestone is that you had people pitting on the first or the last lap just to get the pit stop in because they could do it. And then you had Canada 2010 when they had this huge amount of graining, which created this unpredictability. And off that, they decided, okay, we need tyres made of cheese now. And so come 2011, people are doing 4-stop strategies. And they got it better in 2012. And then 2013, they were horrifically bad. Like, they were doing 5-lap stints. And then everyone's tyres blew up in Silverstone, so they brought back the 2012 spec. And since then, it just keeps on. It balloons each year between tyres that wear out really fast and tyres that just don't wear out at all. And it's like IndyCar doesn't have this thing, because in IndyCar, they're pushing constantly. The tyres don't wear out nearly as fast. In Formula E, they don't pit at all. I mean, Formula E is weird, but they don't seem to have problems with tyres ever in that. And a lot of much older drivers from yonder year have complained with they don't like the fact that modern cars have tyres that suck and they just can't push properly. And I can tell something's wrong, because even in sprint races, drivers are still doing tyre saving. And I'm like, it's a sprint race. The idea, I thought originally when they said we were going to do it, it would be like a 5-lap race and you just push at 100%. But no, they spend 75% of it tyre saving, and then they push in the final 3 laps. Yeah. Like that completely. What you're doing is basically just running a stint of a long race.
And then the reward is 8 points if you win, and 1 point if you finish 8th.
Yeah, I mean, they've improved it in that now it's got nothing to do with the main grid, because obviously I can't believe they didn't see through that, thinking, well, actually, people aren't going to fight for this if they might crash out and then have to start the race from the back. And that, I mean, they shouldn't have sprint races at all, but they've come up with a better solution, but they're just needless. Because again, in Azerbaijan, it was better because it had no effect on the race itself, other than giving away that Ferrari were going to lose the lead within the first 3 laps.
Well, see, I'm still. First, I was all for the sprint races because, sitting down putting your TV on for a free practice, or putting your TV on for a sprint race is much more exciting than a free practice. But then, we saw sprint races where the the secrets of the race were already revealed. You saw, the Ferraris are going through their tires really quickly, and Red Bull's really good on their tires. So, you could see tomorrow in the main race, it's going to be a 1-2 for Max and Checo.
Yeah,
the surprise was gone.
Yeah, it makes up for them losing a practice session, because they can treat the sprint as another practice session, because it gives them all they need to know about doing their long runs.
But then next week I'm going to Austria, and I'm thinking, hey, I'm going to watch a sprint race on Saturday. That's kind of cool. So for the people, in the stands, a sprint race is much more fun, especially if there's a few crashes. Am I allowed to say that? I
don't know if people are allowed to say that these days. But
it's from that perspective. Small, safe crashes.
Yeah, or a couple of breakdowns or something.
Nobody injured.
Yeah, but I can see how, particularly for a spectator point of view at the races, it's more interesting, especially if it's a weekend where, if I don't know if Formula 2 or Formula 3 are in Austria or not, but it gives you an extra thing to watch. But it's messing the format up, and it's also messing the statistics up by giving points for these extra races, and that just kind of annoys me a bit. It just doesn't. We've tried it and it's not really working, but they just want more and more of them, and it's like, we just need to scrap them, because it's never going to serve its purpose. Like, they need less practice time, and this is just giving them practice time back.
Yeah. Well, see, with the hype around filling the all the new stadiums, all the new stands in, especially America, I don't think they're gonna scrap the sprint race. The American audience are not going to sit there to see a practice session.
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, practice sessions are not very interesting when you're watching them live. I mean, the atmosphere is great, but it's like you have no idea. I don't watch practice sessions much, even on TV, because you don't know what fuel levels they're doing or what they're doing in setup or what their plan is, and you're just waiting for them to crash if it's wet or something. And I think practice sessions, there's too much of them. Like, these guys, they don't need 3 hours of testing before the race.
It used to be an hour and a half.
Yeah, it used to be much less. They don't need 2 sessions. It used to be 2-hour sessions and then a 1-hour session, or 2 90-minute sessions, or whatever it was. It's like, that's way too much time, and a lot of them are saying this is too much. We don't know what to do with half of it. And it's like, maybe just one practice session on the Friday is all they need, and then just do quali on the Saturday in the race. And if the weather is different on Saturday and you haven't tested the wet tyre, we'll suck it up. You're the best drivers and teams in the world. You should be able to work it out.
Yeah, that will make an exciting race if some big teams get it wrong.
Yeah, we don't need them having worked out to within 1,000th of an inch what the tyres are going to do and when they need to pit and how to set the car up perfectly for every corner.
No,
like, it needs a bit of it needs a bit of improvisation, or a bit of just unpredictability. It's becoming way too clinical.
Yeah. So overall, do you think this season is boring?
It could be worse. I think it's definitely not the most exciting one, but the races are still by and large okay. Obviously, there is no title fight, and there are some seasons where you have that. I mean, 2011, there was no title fight, but it was a really good season. There were lots of very good races. And we're seeing this now, is that if you ignore Max, we have some very good fights going on behind that. But obviously it's disappointing that we can't always have a close title fight, but that's been the way with a lot of seasons. Most of them, they do just run away with it.
See, I came into F1 in 2015. I was on a birthday, and somebody said, is it okay if we put Max on? So, we put the TV on Ziggo, and we watched the race, and I thought it was fascinating to learn about, the tire strategies, and I was like, oh my god, if you do a pit stop, then you're going to drop 22 seconds back, and if there's a guy driving behind you for 23 seconds, he's only going to be 1 second behind you, and that's how I sort of rolled into it. And then what I talked about earlier of Max being so exciting to watch every race, even if he was in P6 or P8 or almost in the points, there was always something happening with him. And then I barely paid attention to what happened at the front, because it was always Rosberg or Mercedes.
There was nothing happening at the front. 2015 was especially dull, because even the fight between Hamilton and Rosberg didn't exist.
No. But then 2016, at the peak of the Silver War, I didn't watch pre-shows. I didn't watch after shows. I watched the race and turned it off. So I didn't get much of that clash anyway, and I definitely wasn't watching the British channels yet.
Yeah, I mean, I used to watch the pre-shows back when it was free to air on TV, but we lost that several years ago when Sky Sports came in 2012, and from then on it started just being some races live, some were highlights, and then after a few years it was their all highlights. And so I usually didn't bother with watching the pre-show stuff, because it's like, well, if the race isn't going to happen, I'm just going to get to that as fast as I can, or I'm just going to stream it. But even now, I'll turn on like 10 minutes before, or maybe just in time for Martin Brundle's grid walk, see what cringy celebrities he has to chat to, and then.
Okay, so you're still on Sky.
Yeah, well, Sky of sorts. Well, it's Sky / whatever stream comes up, but yeah, basically the Sky coverage.
Yeah.
But yeah, we don't.
I have F1 TV, and I'm really happy with it. You know.
Yeah, obviously we can't get F1 TV here.
Well, you can with a VPN.
Yeah. I looked into this, but then it was like they wanted to try and do an identity check to prove your location. It's like, well, I can't be asked to try and get around that, so I'll just leave that. But Channel 4, it's just highlights, and so I was like, I'm not gonna. I used to really hate around 2018, 2019 when I wasn't streaming stuff. I used to really hate spending a whole afternoon not being able to touch social media, and thinking, what, for all I know, someone's died or something huge has happened, and then you watch the race and nothing happened, and you're like, okay, yeah. I can just about deal with races like Japan and Australia really early in the morning, but then you can watch the highlights just after you've gotten up, so you're not having to wait for the whole day to see it.
I have no problem with those races because I get up at 4:15 every morning anyway, with the business I have.
Yeah.
So doing it on a Saturday and a Sunday, it doesn't bother me.
No.
It just it's very hard to know what to do with the rest of the day. Because normally you have something to look forward to, you know. Like, oh, there's a race today. And like, oh, we already had the race today. Well, what the hell am I going to do now? Talk to my wife?
Yeah. I mean, fortunately, those races there aren't very many of them. But I used to be keen enough, again, when we had it free to wear, to get up at like 6 or 7 to watch Australia or Japan, but not now. I need my sleep too much. Vegas will be interesting because that's like 1 a.m, but then I stay up that late normally anyway, so that shouldn't be a problem. But that's going to be it felt very weird watching F2 and F3 Australia at like 10 o'clock at night. That felt really, really odd because it was broad daylight because it was morning there as well.
Yeah.
That was a strange experience.
Yeah, I kind of like it. It's a bit of the charm of going worldwide, you know.
Yeah, but obviously it's just more convenient to have races on like lunchtime or early afternoon.
Yeah,
which most of them are for us.
But going back to this season, do you think the 3 good teams this year behind Red Bull are going to catch up?
Well, they're already starting to catch up.
Yeah.
Whether or not they catch up enough that they can beat them remains to be seen. But I'm not convinced that we're going to have the first season where the same team wins every race. No. I feel like there's going to be one where either the Red Bull breaks down because that's what it does, or they are just faster. But there has to be at least one where that happens. I think towards the end, because once Max has won the title, I think Red Bull, they will ease up a little bit. And so maybe we'll get a couple of different winners towards the end. But at the moment, the thing is, because Checo is just middling around in the midfield, Max is one dodgy gearbox away from giving a win to another team, because because Checo is not there running in second to inherit the lead from him. But we'll see. It would be nice just to say that a team has finally done it and won every race, but I don't know if it will happen or not. Well,
I think those teams are all on a good trajectory. And there will be a race where Red Bull gets the setup wrong. Maybe this sprint weekend in Austria, they had it wrong last year. You know, they couldn't keep up with the Ferraris. And then we'll have a winner, and I think it's either Alonso or Hamilton that's going to break the 300 race curse. Yeah.
Those two are obviously the most primed to win a race, Alonso especially, I think. Because, you can see that they're still just in their prime, basically, because George is just starting to fall to bits and Lance Stroll is just being Lance Stroll and that. But Alonso is he's made almost no mistakes, I think. And Hamilton is obviously feeling a lot more comfortable in the car and a lot more confident.
No, the only mistake that sort of hurt him was putting him on slicks in Monaco.
Yeah, I mean, that was more of a team thing than him individually making an error. So I think it may only be one, but I think there's got to be at least one where there's some kind of drama and things just don't land for Red Bull. I mean, like Singapore last year, for example, was a bit well. Perez won it, but Max didn't. He had a lot of problems in that.
Yeah, well, Brazil last year as well. You know, Red Bull was not good there, and the Mercedes drivers were much better. And then,
and obviously that was another sprint weekend, and that always changes things around as well. And
so maybe in that sense, the sprint weekends are good. You know, maybe Red Bull needs that setup time to get it all done and to be this good. And maybe, I
mean, it's most of the circuits are really well suited to them because they've got around. They seem to have all bases covered because it used to be Red Bull were really good in high speed corners and downforce, but now they're so good on the straights as well that there are almost no weaknesses anymore. I mean, Max, he does love to complain about his gearbox. He'll say the upshifts are not working or something like that, but nothing's gone wrong with that in a race yet.
He's complaining that that there's a little bit of too much time between the two gears.
Yeah.
That he's trying
they bring this up whether he thinks the gearbox is going to blow, or if they just show that they broadcast that just so it gets the.
I never get the idea that he's complaining that it's almost going to break. It's more that he wants the setup change. It sounds like
when they say something it feels a bit different, people think it's going to blow.
But then I think TV direction, you know, they have access to all team radios, but they just love popping up Max Verstappen, and then your heart starts beating. Like, what is he going to say? What's he going to say?
It's the same with Lewis. Whenever he complains about tyres, they'll bring that up as well.
Yeah.
And whatnot. But Austria is obviously Red Bull's stomping ground. They have a very good track record there. That's one of Max's strongest circuits. So I don't think they'll have any particular problems.
Yeah, Max says that it shouldn't be one of their strongest tracks for the qualities that the Red Bull car used to have. You know, so he's always surprised that it goes so well there.
Yeah. Another thing I think is that the drivers. I think that the standard has improved a lot in the past few years because the drivers just don't make mistakes anymore. You hardly ever get collisions between drivers or drivers crashing out on their own. Go back 20 years and that was happening all the time.
Yeah.
And even about the complaints about like people like Lance Stroll and whatnot being pay drivers, it's like they can still keep the car on the road most of the time. They're not crashing endlessly.
Do you think that's because of the super license?
Yeah, that does have an effect. Obviously, they're a bit more. They're vetting a bit more for the drivers they can take.
Yeah.
And it's also because it's ratting out. You have to be super, super rich now, so it's ratting out the sort of poorer. It's just making it more exclusive.
Yeah.
There's fewer pay drivers around.
But you're saying we need more Maldonados and more Grosjeans back on the grid?
Yeah, just wanted to. I mean, Taki Inoue said this on Twitter. Is like, we need a couple of comedy drivers to make it more interesting.
Tokian, who's that?
Taki Inoue. He
I don't know who that is.
He raced. He raced for. I'm
going to Google him.
He raced for Footwork in 1995 and SimTech in 94. Yeah, he basically his one season in Formula One, he's Japanese. He crashed a lot, and he got run over by the safety car, and he got rear-ended by the pace car in Monaco, and he's known for basically that. And also, he wasn't a very good driver, but he's very active on Twitter, and he's known for basically gloating about how bad he was and everything.
I thought there was an Indian driver that was the worst driver ever.
Yeah, people like to rag on Narain. I mean, he's not as. There are much worse.
There was a guy that sort of got a ban for getting 12 penalty points, and then the very first race he got another ban or something.
I think you're thinking of Mahavir Raghunathan.
Yeah.
Oh, that's Formula 2.
Oh, that was Formula 2.
Yeah, he never made Formula 1, unfortunately. Yeah, Taki Inoue, I mean, he isn't the worst Formula 1 driver. He's one of the worst, but he likes to gloat about that. So he's interesting because most other mid-90s pay drivers aren't really that active on Twitter or anything. So he's got quite a legacy.
Yeah, well, it's good stuff. You know, I'll definitely look him up because, I like Twitter. So, what do you think is going to happen the rest of the season?
Well, Max is going to win the title. Do you
think AlphaTauri is going to stay 10th?
Not forever. I suppose it depends. I'm not sure really how much of a working relationship they still have with Red Bull beyond having the same engines, because it's gradually gotten more and more distant from when they used to have the same car to now they're basically operating independently.
Basically, what people say is that if AlphaTauri is doing well, it's because Red Bull is helping them, and it's not fair. And if AlphaTauri is doing really poorly, it's because Red Bull is using their wind tunnel time.
Yeah. So I don't know. I mean, I think that they're not like outright slowest is the thing. It's just that they're not having the same like breakout weekends that Williams have occasionally. I mean, De Vries is a mess. Tsunoda is driving the hell off the car and just getting not punched down at every level.
Yeah, that broke my heart. That where was that? Where
Catalonia.
Yeah,
when he got the penalty against Zhou Guanyu.
I thought that was a kind of a sneaky trick that Guanyu Zhou did. You know, there wasn't going to be contact where Yuki was, and he just swirled, and then like, oh my god, he nearly hit me. And,
well, people do that.
It looked like a football player trying to get a penalty.
They're starting to act like footballers. I mean, this has become a thing, haggling for penalties or, red flags that benefit you in safety cars. It's becoming very trendy now.
I quit watching football because of it, and now they're going to do it in Formula One as well.
But soon, De Vries is just like... he's just making errors, and it's just, I get the car is awful, but there is quite a significant gap between him and Tsunoda. And considering that De Vries, his debut was stellar, but he's a Formula E champion, he's a Formula 2 champion, he's quite old but for a driver. Like, he should be doing better than this.
Like, he was unfortunate all those years that he had great competition in F2, and he never quite made it to F1 because of the competition that was there. And then he got one lucky break getting to race in Williams on a track where the car was really, really good.
Yeah.
And then all these drivers took penalties so he could start, and he never got anybody to overtake him.
And all he had to do was beat Latifi, who had already beaten in Formula 2. But yeah, I think people big him up, and it's like, okay, it is pointed out that the year that he won Formula 2, it wasn't the most competitive grid. Formula E, I mean, anyone can win that. I think it's just a game of chance. There's nothing remotely resembling consistency.
Did you know that Max Verstappen in F3 had an accident with Latifi and he threw away his championship?
No.
That was 2014. I was reading about that yesterday.
He was doing. I mean, I can't remember what series it was. It was some kind of Formula 3 equivalent, wasn't it? Wow. 2014. I can't remember the specifics, but yeah, I know he didn't win it.
Ocon won the championship.
Ocon won it. Yeah, that's the thing. Ocon was annoyed because he, obviously complete opposite to Max, very poor family, no racing heritage. He had to work really hard, and Max comes along and basically gets in the way of him postponed him getting to Formula 1 by like a year and a half.
Yeah. But then he joined the Mercedes Junior program, and they put him on the sideline for a whole year.
Yeah,
being a junior driver at Mercedes is not easy. I don't think Mick Schumacher is going to get that seat.
Well, no, he's not. I mean, they're at least giving him a relatively proactive role within the team, within the confines of what he can be done. But the thing is, it doesn't mean anything anymore being a reserve driver, because they don't get any testing time. They don't do anything really. It's not like 20 years ago when they were every other weekend they were testing on doing private tests at other circuits and giving a huge amount of in. But he can do some simulator work, and maybe they'll give him the odd. He's doing a tire test, isn't he? But it's just such a dead role. I mean, he is there if for whatever reason George or Lewis can't race, he can do it. But that's just how it is. Like we see this with Felipe Drugovich and Oscar Piastri before. They're the F2 champion, and their reward is a year of doing nothing.
Stoffel van Dorn has been a reserve driver for 5 years or 6 years now, ever since he lost his seat at McLaren.
Yeah, I mean, he potentially could come back. I mean, I don't know. I think it's unlikely, but he's one who maybe could make a return to a seat. But he's been there for ages. Like Sebastian Buemi's been a reserve driver for Red Bull for like 10 years now. It's just meaningless, and it's the lack of seats and the lack of driver turnaround.
If you're a racer and you want to be in a competition with only 20 drivers, sometimes you just have to settle for a paid job as a reserve driver, or
most
lower
most
class.
of them have something else to do. Obviously, Van Dorn and Buemi are both in Formula E, and Buemi's also doing WEC. But Schumacher and Drogovic, they don't do anything else.
No.
They're not racing in any other series.
Yeah.
And like Robert Schwartzman, he's been kept on as a Ferrari reserve for donkey's years now. But again, he's not doing anything else. No. And he's become basically invisible when he used to be a quite good F2 driver.
Yeah.
Maybe
it's good to have more teams in then. So that's
exactly why we need more of them.
Some of these guys can get a seat, because it would be interesting to see more characters on the grid. Because that's what we're missing as well. Those three rookies, at least Yuki 3 years ago, he was swearing a lot on the radio and making mistakes and being funny in Drive to Survive. I think if you do an episode on Drive to Survive on either Logan Sargent or Oscar Piastri, you'll fall asleep because they're dead.
Yeah, they don't have a huge amount of personality. I mean, I guess, whereas Yuki is hot-headed, his driving style's quite interesting, but Logan Sargent is, especially considering he's an American, he's really boring.
Yeah.
Like Scott Speed, when he came in, he was really interesting because he said this when he was on Beyond the Grid. He was very cocky and arrogant, and he had this quite brash, outspoken American personality that was very different from the other drivers, and it just made him a bit more interesting.
Yeah.
But Logan has become extremely boring. Oscar just looks dead to the world most of the time. We've seen, obviously, the Twitch quartet, that gives them a bit of, well, I say personality. It's just, okay, so we see they like to play video games in their spare time. Like, it's something, and I guess that's what social media gives you, is it gives you this kind of access to the drivers that 20 or more years ago you didn't have. And so you didn't know what they were doing off the track and what they were like as people.
Yeah. But so you're saying Oscar Piastri and a few friends are playing Twitch?
No, not Oscar. The Twitch quartet. I'm referring to Lando, Charles, George, and Alex,
and Max. Max is on.
And Max, obviously, yeah. Max, he still streams a lot, but not with them.
Yeah.
But it was during lockdown 2020 when they were like
at the minute, Max is getting cooked because he did an impression of Xavi, the mechanic. That's what Ferrari.
Right.
I don't know. Max said something like, "We are checking."
Oh.
And that's racism.
Oh, come on.
Yeah, I know.
I don't even know. Is this only going around Dutch circles? Because I've heard nothing about this, but it's like
it's on Twitter.
It's on Twitter. It's like they deserve to be mocked. Ferrari, like they just It's just an accent.
Yeah. Like, I mean, if that's not allowed, then that Conor Moore guy can stop doing what he's doing.
Mm.
You know Conor Moore, the Irish fellow?
Oh, yeah, the impersonator, yeah. He's got the accent down for Max, which is fairly good, and just the tone of voice, which is quite difficult.
Yeah. Still, it's kind of touchy because he does Lewis, but obviously not with any face paint or anything.
He has to do like a white Lewis.
Yeah.
And he does it in a way that because he's not wearing blackface, he kind of gets away with it.
And then I doubt if he could get away with impersonating, what do you call him, Karun Chanduk, because he's
that's the
Indian.
thing. I think he probably wouldn't, and that's probably another reason he hasn't gone anywhere near impersonating Tsunoda or Zhou Guanyu, is because of that would be difficult.
But why is it okay to imitate a Latino then?
Yeah, because at the end of the day, it's when it depends on, it draws the line between kind of mocking them and sort of.
It's actually racism
satirizing.
That he's not doing Tsunoda and Joe.
Yeah, if he's not being kind of inclusive, I suppose. But it's when you get. I think it's because people think, if you're mocking the accent for a language it isn't their first language, and it's probably more difficult for them to learn than the European drivers. It's all that stuff. It's because of the way it's been done in the past that it's hard to do it in a way that doesn't sound racist, I guess, like impersonating an Asian person. it's very touch and go or specific about which people you can and can't impersonate, I guess.
Yeah. Well, maybe I need to invite Connor Morgan and talk about it.
You
know.
But I think obviously with Lewis, because Lewis is British, he doesn't have to like do an accent or anything. But then because he doesn't wear blackface, I think that's how he can kind of get away with it.
And then Lewis Hamilton's accent became a little bit more American.
Yeah, I haven't noticed this a huge amount myself. I might, if I went and listened to some of his interviews from when he was at McLaren, I might see it. But I guess it's changed a little bit. I think
we were working so hard. You know, he does have a little bit of that twang. Well,
he spends most of his free time in New York and Los Angeles now, like mingling with Hollywood actors and musicians and everything.
Yeah.
So I guess it would rub off on him. Doesn't spend much time in the UK anymore.
I think if you're hanging about with Americans all the time, you can't use the real British expressions because they won't understand you. And then you just adapt.
You just pick up there.
I know all about adapting my English because, you know, I'm married to a Northern Irish girl, and that changed my accent as well, you know?
Yeah.
So, but anyway, back to Formula One. Do you have a wild prediction for this season? Something crazy? Like, it could be something from silly season, or it could be a surprise race winner. It could be something that's totally out there.
I'm going to nominate Lance Stroll as a surprise race winner.
Okay.
Because he has these moments where he remembers how to drive a Formula One car every once in a while and puts on these insane performances.
That is wild.
So, yeah, we just need one of those with a couple of very convenient retirements at the front, and I could see him winning a race. If it's a wet race and, you know, the leader crashes out, or you get like Hungary where they go bowling at the start and he can just hold them off because he just gets to sweep through the chaos like Ocon did, then why not? Yeah. Because, I mean, saying Alonso is going to win a race is not really a wild prediction. No. It's more of an inevitability. It's the same with Mercedes. And God forbid, even Ferrari could win a race if they get their act together.
Well, my wild prediction, sort of elaborating on your wild prediction, would be if Lance Stroll loses his seat.
Yeah,
for being so poor all season long.
That's less plausible. I mean, I think there is increasing pressure because people are like, look how good Alonso is. And I've said it myself, is that if Vettel was in the seat with Alonso, they'd be comfortably second in the constructors. Yeah. And Vettel would be up at the front fighting Mercedes and everything, and it'd be looking really good for them. Like, they'd probably be catching Red Bull.
Vettel missed 2 races last season and still beat Stroll comfortably.
Yeah, I mean, it is just the way. It's the fact that he's been here. He's been here since 2017, so this is his 7th season.
Yeah,
and he's scored hardly any points that time. He's still making loads of elementary errors. He just isn't it.
And if you look at the list of drivers he's been up against in his team, I think there's only one driver that he beat at Williams.
Well, Sergei Sorokin.
Sorokin.
Yeah, and he was a rookie himself. But yeah, otherwise, yeah, he's been beaten by all of his teammates.
Yeah, what do you call him? Checo Perez beat him in Racing Point, and
then Vettel, and now Alonso. The thing is, he has that seat as long as he wants. The only way he would leave is if his dad leaves as well.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that would turn the whole team on its head unless they can find another billionaire to fund them. But yeah, his dad wouldn't conceivably demote his son for the interests of the team over that. He would want his son to have a seat, I think. And Stroll would not stand for, Lance would not stand for that either.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I just wonder how long he still wants to do this, you know. Like, I saw an interview with him last weekend, and or no, it wasn't last weekend, it was the race before, where Alonso decided to stay behind him and he wasn't going to attack Lance. And there were questions about it, and he reacted kind of he was cross about it, you know.
He probably doesn't appreciate being belittled. Yeah. I mean, Alonso, I think Alonso didn't mean that to be rude. I think he wanted to be supportive, and he's being much more congenial than he used to be. But I can see how Lance would find that insulting. It's basically his way of saying, I can pass you, but I've chosen not to.
Yeah.
And yeah, maybe Lance would just, maybe he would get bored of just driving in the midfield and realizing that even when he's been given good cars, he's just not getting better. But otherwise, he's going to be around. It's like Roy Nissany in Formula 2. He's going to be there as long as he wants.
I heard from, the guys from, what do you call it, the Engine Mode podcast or Engine Braking podcast?
Engine Braking, yeah.
They heard, so there was a rumor at the time with Williams that Lance and Lawrence Stroll had this big altercation in the Williams garage, and Lance Stroll says, "I don't want to do this anymore." And he walked away crying. But then he was really young then as well. But,
yeah, he's still young. He's only 25 or something.
It's sort of the vibe that he gives off is like, yeah, I'm here, but
his personality.
I could actually do something else, but it's my dad.
Well, he could. This is the thing. He's got infinite amounts of money. Like he could do anything he wants. I think that's the reason. Like some people are concerned about Latifi because there's been total radio silence from him since last year. He's not racing. He's not doing anything. It's like, well, he's got billions of dollars sat under him, so he's probably just living his best life on a yacht somewhere. So Lance, he could do anything else if he wanted. So maybe he will get bored of traveling constantly and all the media stuff and not getting much results. And this kind of thing, it probably does create tensions between him and his dad because it's a business venture for both of them. And there's a lot of money at stake and the press is intervening. And it's the same. Obviously, Hamilton and his dad had a bit of a falling out and his dad stopped managing him for a time. And it will create problems. And so maybe that will make a difference. But the only way he leaves is if he chooses to, I think, at the moment. Yeah. And I don't think that's going to happen anytime soon, unless Aston Martin get bought out by someone else.
No, they're going so well, like they estimated Alpha Tauri to, at $600 million or $800 million. How much would a team like that cost then? A team that's scoring podiums.
Yeah, Aston Martin, this is the thing. It's working well. That's the problem is if you lose Lance, you'll probably lose Lawrence as well. And that's when the team will go down the toilet. Yeah. Because I think it's working because of his investment. And he's obviously a good business head and he knows what to do. But it's just that the catch is that he has to have his son driving as well. Yeah. And he's costing them a lot of good
Then
results.
If you look at what all the other second drivers are doing, George Russell's not doing too great. Perez is not doing too great. Then they're at the minute...
there are very few close matches between teammates.
Leclerc is supposed to be the number one driver, but he's getting beat by Sainz.
Yeah, he's falling to pieces. I mean, Sainz had a couple of off weekends, but by and large, those two are still reasonably close. Like George and Lewis are close on pace, but George is just making mistakes more and complaining a lot. Obviously, there's a huge gap between Tsunoda and De Vries. Bottas and Zhou, there's a bit of a gap, but they're just both largely invisible at the moment. Alpine is close. I've forgotten if the other team. Williams, there's a massive gap. It's quite uneven teams at the moment, teammate pairings.
But I think that sort of makes things easier as well, if you have it all sort of, if you can line out the strategy. Like this guy is in front of you in the standings. He's got more points than you in the standings. So we're going to prefer him with the strategy. Yeah. Rather than two guys fighting for the same position on track.
Yeah, I think it does help things. I mean, with Red Bull, it's interesting that Perez keeps saying, each race, it's like, the title is slipping further and further away. It's like, you never had it. No. And again, Helmut Marko said this is the same. Like, Max has never seen Perez as a threat. This fight has always been over. And it's like, that's how it works. We knew this was the case with Hamilton and Bottas. Hamilton has never realistically seen Bottas as a threat. And that's why he would let him win a couple of races at the start and then body him the rest of the season. Again, Vettel and Webber was the same. Hamilton and Rosberg was different because it was actually quite close between them.
Yeah, Rosberg won 7 races in a row at some point.
Yeah, and he got more pole positions in 2014, I think, as well. With them two, it was close. But with a lot of others, I mean, it's been done before. We've seen this so many times with like Mansell Patrese, Schumacher Barrichello. Like, there's all these team pairings where there's a lead driver in the second.
Didn't Schumacher sort of handpick his second drivers in his teams, and didn't he get proper preferential treatment?
He had the whole team wrapped around his finger. I mean, he built that team basically from the ground up. But even in
contracts saying that you always have to move aside for Schumacher.
Yeah, that wouldn't surprise me if they had that. I mean, there's funny. I mean, there's the famous things like Alan Prost having the clause in his contract with Williams that Senna couldn't be his teammate. So that's always been a thing with the high end teams with very in demand drivers. They can make those kind of demands if they want their services.
Okay, well, I think this wraps it up. You know, we've been talking for an hour and 10 minutes. Is there anything you want to get off your chest? Any final thoughts? What are you working on at the minute? What can we expect from your channel?
I've got another video. Well, I'm doing a Q&A probably this weekend. It'll be a live stream as a 20,000 subscriber special, even though it was about a month ago I passed 20,000 subs, so that's a bit belated. Thank you. I've got another stats video coming out with lots of number crunching. I keep getting badgered about doing part 4 of the Haas series, so I probably should get that started on that because it was over a year ago that I put part 3 out. I'm
still catching up on your content. You know, what I usually do is if I'm correcting the subtitles from one of my longer videos, I'll put one of your videos on my TV here. You know, and then I just do 2 things at the same time. And then because they're so long, it doesn't matter if I drift off for 2-3 minutes and do something else because there's enough to see there. Hey, and now you have a Patreon as well.
So it's just Peter Brook. So that one you can pay. I've got tiers, but it's only cheap. It's like £2-3 a month, and you can get early access to the audio for each video. So I'll put that up there first. I occasionally put up, if videos get copyright strikes and they have to make cuts, I'll put the video up in full on Patreon as well. And every once in a while,
how is that allowed?
Well, Patreon don't care about copyright; they don't check for that. So, and the YouTube overlords aren't there to chase me down for it, so they can't do anything about it.
You'd say that the owners of the footage, you know, it's for them that they're doing that. So
but if it's behind a paywall, they can't see it.
Oh, right. Yes.
Yeah. And Patreon, I don't think Patreon are nearly as uppy about copyright anyway as YouTube are.
But you have a. What I noticed with our collaboration is that you have a very loyal, but kind of I would nearly say a pure F1 focused community. Obviously a lot of my fans are a similar age to me, and they're people who've been watching for maybe 20 years or more, so they like to reminisce about things that happened 20 or 30 years ago. I try to be inclusive in the sense that I don't assume knowledge, so that's why I cover the basics of everything, and that's why I repeat myself a lot, is because I want and even new fans, I want them to be accessible and easily understandable, which is why I'm offering covering the basics of a lot of things over and over again to get that established. And I'm still sort of trying to find my way, but I do like to see I used to love WTF1 when Matt and Tommy were still there.
Yeah.
And if Matt did a video, you'd see his, bobbling head and, all kinds of GIFs and jokes in between. So I think my style is sort of based on that.
Yes.
And I noticed that when I look at my analytics, the age groups, normally the age group that I'm in, 45, and 10 years below are the most frequent watchers. But I noticed that on some of my videos, it's even 10 years younger. So I'm attracting a younger crowd. But then when we did the collaboration, there were comments there of people saying, "Oh my God, who's that clown?" And if this is going to be your new style with stupid GIFs and sound effects, then I hope it gets better over time, because this is not my cup of tea. And I think that's just one of your diehard community members that, take the effort to express their feelings in the comment section.
Yeah.
Which I think is really nice.
I think it's good. I mean, I have a style and people like it, and I don't try to change. I mean, I'll change things up a little, but I still keep it broadly the same vibe. And that's what people go to me for, basically. I think everyone has a niche, and I've found mine. I think. But
still, I'd love to do more collaborations because that mix of style, I kind of like it. me being sort of the goofball and you being the serious historian type.
And you can always kind of get ideas off of each other as well, and that,
Yeah, you just need to write full sentences when you DM me back.
Yeah.
But I'm glad we had this chat because, it's been good. I think it's a good podcast. I hope the people at home feel the same. So, I'll put the links of Peter Brook's channel and his Patreon and everything. I'll put it down in the description, and I'll see you all in the next one. Bye-bye. Peter, say bye-bye.
Bye-bye.